Have you ever spent 20 minutes searching for one asset that you know is somewhere, but you just can't quite find it? And then you end up spending the rest of the afternoon trying to find it and failing. Well, that eats away at your reputation. And so in this episode, we're going to talk about industry standard folder structure and organization that will prevent this. It's the same folder structure that I used when I got nominated for an Emmy, and it's the same folder structure that I've seen used at huge clients of mine like BBC, Vice, and Ogilvy. Hello and welcome back to the video editing podcast from Unsplice, where you'll learn how to overcome cluelessly editing from your gut and consistently apply industry standard workflow and storytelling techniques that premium clients will pay £300 to £500 per day for. Thank you for joining me. My name's Shiny. If you already knew that, welcome back. It's good to have you. This is another episode in my 100 episodes in 100 days challenge. In this episode, I'm going to show you how professionals organize their assets so they can find anything in 10 seconds. If you didn't follow this industry standard organizational structure, then when a client comes to you and they've got a tight deadline, because they always have a tight deadline, and they've said, I've got the perfect still image that goes there. I send it to you. Can you make sure you add it in? And you can't find it anywhere. If you can't find that asset swiftly, that is going to have knock-on effect on the entire schedule for the post-production. You're going to have less time to actually do the editing and get it looking as tight as it could possibly be. That is going to reflect negatively on your reputation, and that client is never going to book you again. So having correct folder structure optimized is going to save you time. It's going to save your reputation. It's going to save your income as well. So what is a professional folder structure? I'm going to share with you the exact folder structure that I've used across my industry projects. And it's taken all of the best bits from all the different companies that I work for, seen what works and what doesn't, simplifying it, breaking it down until it's crystal clear and everything has its own place. And if you can't be bothered to recreate this on your own, you can actually get this folder structure template with the technical workflow workshop. There's a link below. Check it out if you're interested. So at the top level of the folder structure, we want to keep it as easy as possible. There should be no room for error. Anybody should be able to jump into this folder structure and find anything they need without using any kind of search. So the top level, you want to have as few folders as possible. And the top level is going to be made up of just 4 folders: documents, exports, media, projects. I don't need to explain what's in each of these, and that's kind of the point. It should be as obvious as possible for anybody looking at these. Where can they find something? So you know, if you need to find an asset, probably not looking in exports, probably not looking in projects, you're going to be looking in media. So that's it, 4 folders at the top level. Everything has a home. So what's exactly inside each of these folders? Well, documents is actually, in my opinion, the most important one here. And it's the folder that I see missing from most amateur folder structures. In here, you're going to have the brief. So everything to do with the brief that comes in should go in there. So you have one place. You don't have to go searching back through all your emails to try and find the brief and get all the details. The brief is something you're going to be referring back to throughout a project. So it should be somewhere really easy to find and not scattered across 5 different emails. If it is, bring all those emails into this one folder here. And that means you only have one place to look. And you can also date the folders so you know exactly which is the latest brief if it constantly updates. And you've also got a folder for feedback. That's important, especially if feedback is coming in via email. You can consolidate it by date, and then you know what is the latest feedback, especially if you're getting contradicting feedback from different people. You know, this is the latest feedback. And if somebody comes back and says, oh, can we change this? And it's contrary to some previous feedback, you've got it there. You can screen grab it and go, you said this. Can you just clarify which direction we're going in with this? Fonts. Really, really important. You always need fonts. Stick it in documents, because then you have one place, and then when somebody else opens that project at a later date, or they don't have the font, they can find it very, very easily. Any references. So typically at the beginning of a project, the client is going to send you references. We love it to look like this. It could be a video, could be a deck, a PDF deck. It could be some random images that they found online. Put them all in here. The schedule, if they send you the schedule, put it in there because you might need to come back and forth to that as well. Any scripts, of course, they're going to be updated constantly. So put those in date folders. Any storyboards, subtitles as well, and transcriptions, because you're probably going to be dealing with subtitles. So they need to go somewhere. So they might as well go in documents. Your exports folder is pretty obvious. That's going to be where you send everything. But this is everything that goes outside into the big wide world, all right? So if you're creating some renders from After Effects or from DaVinci Resolve, you're doing some color grade, that doesn't go in exports. Exports is only for stuff that goes outside. Exporting, you're exporting it out of your production pipeline. That keeps things super, super clear. You can have a folder for work in progresses, whips, and a folder for masters. So when you finish the project and everything's tied and then you can create a masters folder. And so you know that the latest is the one in the masters folder. So if you are doing any exports that you want to reuse in your project, you're going to throw it in media because that's stuff that you're using in the project. So all of your media goes in there. Media is going to be pretty obvious, right? It's everything that makes up your project that is not a project. Audio, all of your audio, any mixes that you're getting from a sound designer, if that's going out or it's coming in, then you want to have separate folders for out and in for an audio mix. Of course, you got music, sound effects, all the standard stuff, voiceover, all really, really important. And then underneath that, you want to have your footage. Now, footage is going to come in many different ways. If you're working with a client and they are sending you stuff that's found from the internet, anything that you found online that it already exists out there in the big wide world that you're going to use in your edit, that's archive. Have a separate folder specifically for that. A lot of archive is going to come in a format that will slow down your machine. Remember, we don't want to be cutting with MP4s and MP3s. And if that is news to you, then make sure you check out the last episode. All of this is covered inside the technical workflow workshop. The second folder you want to have inside there, inside your footage folder, is converted. This is stuff for footage that came into you, but is unusable in its existing format. So you have to transcode it into something else that is usable and is safe, and you are going to be using that in your final edit. That's converted. Rarely does footage come in that is unusable in your editing software that you have to transcode it into something completely different so that you can use it, but you need a folder for that. We also need a folder for proxies, because if we're going to be working with proxies, because the raw footage is way too big and way too heavy for what we want to use it for, then we need to have a separate folder, one place with all of our proxies, so that if we need to hand that project over to somebody, we don't have to send all of the raw stuff. We have one folder, we upload all the proxies, and they can work from them. Happy days. And lastly, we need a folder for all of the raw stuff. Of course, stuff straight from the camera, the heavy stuff. So all of that needs to live in its own folder inside RAW. Now, of course, every time you bring assets into any of the media folders, you need to make sure that you put them in a folder that is today's date. And it has to be in this format: year, month, day. And that's because we're working internationally. If you're listening to this in America, you're going to write it different to the way that I'm going to write it in the UK. Europeans will write it different. Japanese will write it different. So by writing it year, month, day, it prevents any confusion. If the date starts with 2025, it's very obvious. We're talking about the year 2025 and then the month. There's only one way to write this, and nobody's writing year, day, month. It just doesn't exist. So not only that, but it would also mean that when you sort your view by name, everything's going to be in order. It's always going to fall in the correct month order. Now, if you write it in a different way, the American way perhaps, and you're working across December and January, well, 12 and 01, then 01 is going to sit above 12. And actually, January comes after December. So there's going to be a bit of confusion there. So writing it in this way clears any confusion, makes it super obvious for anybody opening the project, the date and the order that these assets are coming in. Going back to the media folder, we also have a folder for GFX, graphics. That's all of your animations. That's all of your images, your still images. That's basically anything that isn't footage or audio. If you're making your own animations, if you are being sent logo animations from the client, logos, titles, graphics, all of that kind of stuff, then it goes into the graphics folder and you know exactly where to find it. Separate folders for all of those things, and of course, separation by date. And then lastly, the last folder in your media folder is the online. There's two phases of an edit, the offline and the online. The offline is all the stuff that you're used to. It's the actual editing that happens, that takes place. It's taking the images, taking the audio, cutting it all together, making it sexy. Then once you get picture lock, which is a sign up from the client, we love this, thanks, can you get it ready to send out? Now, after picture lock, we go into the online. So that might need to then go out to a color grader. It might need to go to a sound mixer or a sound designer. It might need to go to graphics, might need to go to VFX. They need to do all their things. Then they're going to send all the assets back to you, and then you pull all of those together. That's the online. And there are specific jobs for online editors who do only do the online. And so anything to do with the online goes in this folder. That means you've got one place to find all of the final assets. And if you are doing the grade yourself, then you can export them into its own folder. And you know that this is only the graded footage. And then finally, we've got the projects folder. Now the projects folder is pretty obvious. It should be just your projects. Now make sure that you are creating folders for every single piece of software that you're using. If you're using Premiere and DaVinci Resolve and After Effects, you have to have folders for each of those because it just makes things easy to find, and you can find anything you need in under 10 seconds. If you are receiving folders or previous projects from a client, then this is where you want to put it. But you want to make sure that you put it in the correct folder for the software, but also inside that folder, have a folder that says supplied. So any projects that have been supplied to you have their own folder, and you know exactly where to find it. And if you have to open it, then it's there and it's easy to find. And a lot of these folders are project managed. So you've got the assets, all of the assets and the project all together in one folder, put them all together, keep it all together here in projects, so that any projects that have been supplied to you, you're going projects, supplied, there it is, nice and easy. So with this structure, it's super easy to find anything in under 10 seconds. Anybody, no matter whether they're an editor, they're a sound designer, they're a color grader, they can jump into this and they know exactly where to find what it is that they need for their part of the process. It's also now easy to back up. It's easy to hand off to somebody else to share only the assets that they need. And if the client asks for the logo, it's pretty obvious where it's going to be. Media, graphics, logos. So also make sure that you're using the correct footage in your project. Because imagine you're working on a project that's been shot in 8K, which seems like overkill. However, 8K is actually really good if you want to do tons of VFX or some intricate compositing. So in that case, we want that much information for the VFX guys. However, in the edit, it's a bit overkill. So we might not want to use that. So we can keep that in the raw, and we can create proxies or lower versions of that media. And then you can send only the folder that is necessary to each party. The VFX person gets the raw folder sent across to them. And somebody who's working on audio doesn't really need that much detail. They can just have the proxies. Now, if you can't be bothered to build this folder structure yourself, then it comes with the technical workflow workshop, which you can access at the link below. This folder structure allows you to find any asset in seconds. It's super, super powerful. It's what most of the industry pros use. And when you can work fast, it gets you rehired. But now that you have the folder structure, how should you structure your bin structure inside of Premiere or whatever NLE that you're using? Well, quite simply, copy the folder structure. That way you know exactly where everything is. Everything matches across. This is the exact system that I used through my 15-year career. I've never wasted time searching. Producers will often compliment me on how I managed to find the best bits. And I put it down to structure and organization. And this is a huge, huge part of that. Reliability is what premium clients will pay £300 to £500 per day for. Organization isn't boring. It's necessary. It's what separates the pros from the amateurs. It's what clients pay for. They pay for speed and reliability. And it can't get more simple than 4 folders. And as a little bonus tip, if you're in Premiere Pro, you can now use their brand new AI search function, which is super, super powerful. It scans all of your footage and you can search for anything. I've asked it to look for emotions, someone frowning, and it finds it. It's a little slow right now, but it's going to get better. It will find text, it will find movement, it will find action, it will find objects in the scene. You can ask it about times of day. It's really, really powerful. And if you are using Premiere Pro, I urge you to use it. And of course, all this folder organization is super powerful. And the whole point is to give you a robust system that you can rely on. However, it can all fall apart if you get just one character incorrect in your naming. So if you want to avoid corrupt projects because you got one letter wrong in your naming, then make sure you check out the next episode.